So we are starting the new year with some awesome games dropping on Xbox. My name is Sunny, and before we talk about the upcoming January games, let's start with a potential rumor for Call of Duty World of War, which might be coming to Game Pass, as it's been dropped by a guy who leaks games ahead of time. He's almost always on the money, which makes sense, guys, as a part of me expects pretty much all the COD games to make their way to Game Pass in the coming months and years ahead, including those older titles. Also rumored was another Activision title in Singularity, which I guess would drop at the exact same time as Call of Duty World of War. So expect all this to come here at some point. Hopefully though, we get to see it this January. So guys, one of our first games coming to Game Pass this January is Carrion, which is going to be the first game actually officially to join Game Pass this 2025. It's an incredibly fun game that's actually making a return. At first glance, it might look a little bit messy. Once you start playing this game, you get really addicted to the mindless chaos combined with its epic action. The game really flips the script. Instead of being like a human fighting monsters and you're like trying to save humanity, you are actually the monster itself trying to escape from a research facility that's keeping you trapped, and you're gonna smash through obstacles, devour humans, and grow stronger as you consume chemicals along the way. This game's chaotic, it's intense, and it's so much fun. Carrion is set to arrive on Game Pass on January 2nd. Now, if you're someone who prefers a good story over mindless action, Road 96 is gonna be perfect. The story-driven adventure takes you on a journey as teenagers try to escape an authoritarian nation by crossing the border. And the game isn't just about escape, but the journey that you take, and you'll be hitchhiking, and you'll be walking, taking buses, hailing taxis, even stealing cars to make your way forward. And along the way, you'll stop at different locations to explore, gather supplies, and meet characters with their own stories to tell. Now, what makes this game so unique is that the failure isn't the end, it's part of the experience. Each time you fail, you start as a new teen with a completely different perspective and story to uncover. So it gives you plenty of time to have fun. This one is set to join Game Pass, or I should say return to Game Pass, as it's been on here before, on January 7th. The game Boti Byteland Overclocked is a charming little 3D platformer set in a colorful computer world. You play as Boti, a data robot on a mission to protect the system from viruses, bugs, and glitches. The game has an adorable aesthetic and offers some really lighthearted platforming mixed with some really fun combat. What makes it even better is the option to play cooperatively with a friend, and together you'll tackle all sorts of creative challenges like rhythm-based musical slides and magnetic gameplay mechanics as you guys explore and overcome obstacles together. This one is set to drop for consoles on January 10th. If you've happened to be waiting for Hollow Knight Silksong like pretty much the rest of us, we've been waiting forever, but you want to try maybe something similar, you're going to want to definitely check out Morkull's Ragast Rage. At least hopefully I pronounced that correctly. It's a hectic hack and slash 2D platformer where you play as the god of death and darkness, and you're on this epic journey to break the fourth wall, whatever that means. Anyway, the game's packed with tons of different enemies and bosses to fight, and unlike Hollow Knight, this one takes a more lighthearted approach with frequent jokes and digs at pop culture. And on top of that, it looks pretty good too. This one is set to drop on Xbox Series X and S on January 16th. So we have the game Dynasty Warriors Origins dropping on the Xbox Store. This is the latest addition to the series that promises a fresh new story with a lot of new twists. This time you play as a nameless amnesiac protagonist traveling through the ravaged lands, and you have no memory of your past, but you have this insane arsenal of martial arts skills, and you're going to take on this wild journey to conquer the three kingdoms. Now, from what we've seen with the gameplay, it's looking way more realistic and polished compared to previous entries. The combat does look as intense and chaotic as ever. You're going to be facing waves upon waves of enemies to take down using these flashy over-the-top combos, pretty much like a lot of Dynasty Warriors of the past. It's crazy to think that I've been playing Dynasty Warriors since like I was a little kid back like 2 decades ago. Either way, Dynasty Warriors Origins is set to drop on Xbox Series X on January 17th, but there's no word yet if this could potentially head to Game Pass. I'm kind of hoping for it, but we'll see. So we are getting the remaster of Tales of Grace F, and this is a must play for those who are Tales of Arise fans out there. If you happen to be one, this is a fantastic JRPG packed with intense real-time combat and a solid dose of strategic gameplay. This remaster brings back the original story along with all your favorite characters, but now with better visuals and a much more needed modern upgrade for current gen consoles. If you've been looking for a reason to revisit this gem, now's going to be that perfect time. Tales of Grace F lands on Xbox on January 17th. So the game Eternal Strands has been getting a lot of attention lately, but it's not for particularly good reasons, many calling this game pretty much much like an Immortals Phoenix Rising ripoff, and at first glance it definitely gives off those same vibes, but when it comes to the gameplay, it offers a pretty different experience. You get a vast open world to explore with total freedom to tackle it however you want, and the combat really looks like it's all about magical abilities, letting you wield elemental powers to freeze or burn enemies. Plus it's got some awesome telekinetic moves to toss things around and do some other cool stuff, and of course there will be plenty of massive bosses around the world, really setting the stage for some epic battles. Eternal Strands is set to drop on January 28th as a day one Game Pass release, which guys, I'm excited to see. Now lately, if you've been into these like intense extraction shooters, you're gonna want to definitely check out a game whose name I cannot pronounce well. I think it's Synduality Echo of Ada. This is an upcoming PvPvE looter shooter that drops you into a brutal alien world full of vicious machines, and luckily you've got powerful mechs to really help you survive as you take on some really colossal mechanical monsters and other players while also scavenging for anything of value really. Now from what I've seen, the combat looks really intense, especially with the flashy anime art style. I'm not personally huge on sci-fi mech battles, but if that's your thing, I mean this definitely looks like one to keep on your list. The game is Synduality Echo of Ada, lands on Xbox on January 23rd. Now speaking of remasters, we're also getting Sword of the Necromancer Resurrection, and it's not exactly a remaster but rather a 3D remake of the original game with updated visuals and new gameplay mechanics. And for those who aren't familiar, this is a unique twist on the action dungeon crawler genre. Instead of just fighting through hordes of monsters all alone, you have the ability to revive your defeated enemies and turn them into allies to fight by your side. And you'll need all the help you can get as you dive deeper into the dungeon. You'll be gathering the power you need to really bring your beloved priestess Coco back from the dead. If you love the original that came out in 2021, you're going to want to check out this one as it drops on Xbox on January 23rd. Our next game here is a special one, especially if you're a Star Wars fan like I am. We are getting a remaster of one of the earliest Star Wars games in Jedi Power Battles Episode 1. This one definitely brings back a lot of good memories, even though it wasn't exactly perfect, but back then nobody really cared about it that much. You know, the game brings you back to your favorite characters from the original Dreamcast version, along with a new one, the Tusken Raider. This remaster offers a more polished experience while keeping that nostalgic look intact, and you can play this solo or team up with a buddy for some two-player couch co-op action through the entire 10-level campaign, plus some bonus mini games as well. On top of that, you can choose between classic or modern control schemes, toggle your lightsaber colors to whatever you like, even enter classic cheat modes, and a lot more. This one is set to drop on Xbox Series X and S and Xbox One on January 23rd. We have a really big game coming to Game Pass in Sniper Elite Resistance, guys. One of my favorite franchises. It's coming to Game Pass this January. Resistance is offering a fresh setting, new characters, and of course a brand new story, but with the same iconic intense gunplay we've come to love. Of course, it's bringing back that fan favorite feature like the X-ray kill cams. I've always loved that, always loved watching the brutal kills, and of course the game's adding a ton of authentic World War II weapons that you can mess around with. Plus the game lets you team up with a friend to tackle the entire campaign in co-op mode, making it even more fun to play. If you're looking for a very high quality, close to like AA type of game, you know, not AAA exactly, but Sniper Elite Resistance is going to be one of the better games to drop on Game Pass this January 30th. So guys, it looks like Atomic Heart is getting its third major DLC in Enchantment Under the Sea, and honestly it looks and sounds pretty amazing. As the name suggests, this DLC is going to take you deep underwater with another twisted storyline and a world filled with plenty of gruesome new enemies. And when you take an extreme kind of look at the reveal trailer, it shows this super intelligent talking dolphin that might help you in the journey, which is fascinating. Of course, you'll also get a bunch of new weapons to take on these strange new underwater creatures, and honestly this DLC is shaping to look like a pretty fascinating and fun one. Enchantment Under the Sea is set to drop on Xbox on January 28th. So we have the game Orcs Must Die Deathtrap. This is a rather quirky mix of third-person shooter with tower defense. You're going to play as a customizable warrior mages tasked with protecting your rift from waves of increasingly brutal monster orcs. The game does have kind of like a roguelike inspired build type to it. There's a deep progression system as well. There's unique combat moves for each character, and of course it wouldn't be complete without tons of gore-filled action. You can play this game solo, but it's definitely an option to play with 3 other friends by your side as well. This one is set to drop on Xbox Series X and S on January 28th. We have the game Stone of Madness. I think this game's worth mentioning this January. It's a dark real-time strategy game from the developers of a game that I'm very much a big fan of in Blasphemous. Blasphemous, and Blasphemous itself is a game that's been loved by tons of people who've loved Metroidvania games. Now, I'm not actually a Metroidvania fan, but I did love the game Blasphemous. It was just so good. Stone of Madness, though, is a completely different experience entirely. In this game, you play as a prisoner trying to escape a dark monastery with the help of 4 other prisoners. The game looks super challenging. You'll also be solving puzzles, planning your moves on the fly, sneaking past guards, and sometimes fighting back. Each prisoner has their own unique skills, so it's about using those skills wisely as you face your darkest fears and phobias. This one is set to land on Xbox Series X and S on January 28th. So our next game here is the sequel to a critically acclaimed RPG in Tales of Iron, but we're getting here Tales of Iron 2 Whiskers of Winter, and this one looks like it's taking the already insane action to the next level. And the story here is that another war has kind of reached the rats, and this time you take control of Arlo, a young warrior who's set to defeat an evil army of bats and save the kingdom. And even though this is a 2D game, the art style is incredibly impressive, packed with tons of details. You'll face a variety of enemies and bosses along the way, using an array of weapons from melee to ranged, and as you defeat these enemies along the way, you'll be earning gold that can be spent on upgrading your settlement or buying new items and weapons. Now, if you're into brutal action-packed RPGs, this one's definitely worth checking out when it drops on January 28th on Xbox Series X and S and Xbox One on the Xbox Store. So the game Robots at Midnight is like a futuristic take on the Souls-like genre that lets you smash through hordes of hostile robots, but in a cartoonish yet intense action RPG. Now, you're going to play as Zoe. This is a young and energetic hero who's just trying to survive while looking for answers about her past. The combat is fast and fun, perfect for anyone who wants to try out the Souls-like genre without that super tough difficulty. And speaking of the difficulty, the game does offer 2 difficulty modes. There's a hero mode where the challenge is a little easier, letting you focus more on the story and exploration. Then you have the master mode, which is pretty brutal and it'll give you that taste of the real Souls-like experience you're more used to. This game is set to arrive on Xbox Series X and S on January 29th. And last but not least, we have another big sequel in Citizen Sleeper 2 Starward Vector, and this one throws you right into the shoes of another broken android stuck on Hellion Star, the same as the first game, but this time you're exploring a different part of it, and there will be fresh new characters and new skills and a completely revamped dice system. And from what it looks like, this one looks like it's a big shift for those who really love the first game, but it also means that newcomers can easily jump in. The game's going to be a lot bigger with more stations to explore on the start compared to the first game. This one though is going to be filled with unique communities, factions, and organizations, and you'll be able to take on different contracts, offering plenty of new ways to interact with the world. Citizen Sleeper 2 is set to come on Xbox on January 31st. This one will also be a day 1 Game Pass title as well.